Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. On behalf of EQ Office and Willis Tower, I would like to welcome you to our first virtual Tower Talk of the new year. Our Tower Talk series, much like everything else in the world, has evolved with the climate of everything that happened last year and our continued path through these times. Yet still, we endeavor to foster creativity, collaboration, and a sense of community. If you've not been to the tower in quite some time, we miss you, and we hope that you are safe and well. The redevelopment is taking off in leaps and bounds. For instance, with our new outdoor art installation off of Jackson by globally renowned artist Olafur Eliasson. EQ Office also recently announced our ESG, that's our environmental, social, and governance program, designed to help build economic health in communities by regenerating urban spaces, preserving local culture, and driving humanity in our workspaces. And we also have several of our amazing catalog restaurants that remain open with adjusted hours. So for the latest on all of these and other building news and updates, we encourage you to follow us on social media at Willis Tower Chicago. Download our tenant exclusive My Willis Tower app, and be sure to subscribe to our building newsletter, The 110. A few housekeeping reminders as we get started today. We will be using Zoom webinars, so your cameras and audio commands have been disabled, and we will answer questions during our Q&A portion at the end of today's presentation. We welcome you to use our chat feature to submit your questions. Today's session will also be recorded and shared following today's session. We've got a great topic today, very timely, top trends to keep an eye out for in 2021. So without further ado, I would love to introduce our speaker, Erick. Erick is a vibrant storyteller who has led innovation trajectories, presented keynotes, webinars, and has hosted various future-forward workshops and events for the likes of PepsiCo, Liberty Global, and UNICEF. After running the trend department for an Amsterdam-based boutique agency, he now helps Trendwatching's clients to unlock their purpose potential through translating trend intelligence into tangible business opportunities. He also coordinates Trendwatching's monthly Makeshift publication and plays a leading role in their new Ask an Analyst service. His latest work includes a report on intersectional activism and a webinar on COVID-related societal shifts attended by 60 brands worldwide. Welcome, Erick.
Wow, what a lovely introduction. Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here and to get to talk to you all today. So thanks a lot for the opportunity. Before we dive deep into the trends, I would briefly like to introduce the company I work for, because today we're going to be talking about trends for 2021, the year ahead. But as mentioned, before we dive in, I'm going to briefly introduce bits and pieces of our methodology. Because at Trendwatching, we are obsessed, I can say, with spotting and analyzing consumer trends. And we have a simple yet structured way of looking at the world that helps us spot these trends. We've been doing this for nearly 2 decades now, scanning the globe for insights and meaningful business opportunities. And at Trendwatching, our ultimate goal is to help organizations make sense of all of the change around the world and create positive impact as a result. So at Trendwatching, we are guided by trends, but we are grounded in purpose. As a trend researcher, this seems like the most obvious statement to make. And for a long time, I've begun every presentation with this one. But 2020, as I'm sure you will all agree, has been a year. And the world is always changing, does no longer cut it anymore. And I don't typically quote Vladimir Lenin, you have to trust me on this one, but what he said rings true today, because there are decades where nothing happens, and then there are weeks where decades happen, as proven by the events of 2020. And just to kind of look back and review 2020, because it has been a year. Starting even pre-pandemic in January, when the bushfires in Australia killed or displaced nearly 3 billion animals. And then flash forward to March, which was when the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a pandemic. And 1 month later, nearly 4 billion people being under some form of restrictions in an attempt to stop the spread of the virus. But things are looking up because in November, the re-elections happened, as well as large breakthroughs regarding the COVID vaccine. But zooming back to March of 2020, the movement of people around the world came to a screeching halt. And with that, the global economy with it. And millions of us became BBC dad. And this is a newscaster from the BBC, and he was trying to deliver the news, but his kids kind of got in the way. I'm hoping my kids, I don't have any, but I'm hoping they won't pop up anytime soon. But this is kind of an example of how we all had to shift and pivot and figure out how to balance our lives at home with our work lives. But it's not just us as individuals who had to adapt and pivot, businesses as well. This is one of my favorite business pivots. It's an animal sanctuary that offers goats and llama video calls where you can have an animal drop in on a Zoom call. And you might think that this is a very niche type of service, but they have been booked for the year and the year to come. So businesses are searching for ways to amp up their online video meetings. And because of all of this unprecedented change, it is easy to feel overwhelmed. But I am here to tell you, don't panic, don't stress. We are here to make sense of all the change that is happening. Because in essence, we are still the same humans with the same basic human needs. Because, you know, our basic human needs, they don't change from month to month. And even a pandemic doesn't change them too much. Granted, there have been some additions in recent times, but in general, they remain the same. But when change bumps up against these human needs, it creates tension. It creates new types of expectations. And that is how we at Trendwatching plot a course and signal a new trend. Because you have these basic needs and you have drivers of change, larger societal shifts outside of our control that are impacting society and consumer behavior. And they create these expectation gaps. And one way to fill up these gaps is to come up with new and innovative new products, services, business models that are based both on basic human needs and the drivers of change. Because if you innovate purely based on basic human needs, you get more of the same, and there's not much new and innovative about it. And when you create just based on the drivers of change, it creates novelties as they don't really cater to our basic human needs. So people won't find use for them. And even though we are a consumer trend firm, we don't ask consumers anything. Instead, we look at these innovations that consumers are lavishing love and attention on today. And we use those to draw insights about the future needs and wants of your customers. So innovations resolve that tension and create new expectations. One example I always like to underline is Instagram, for instance. It has a large impact on the way we present ourselves, but consequently, it has also impacted the way we present our food, the way we travel. So these expectations are traveling and expanding to different industries. And therefore, we are living in an expectation economy. And what this basically means is that you're not just competing with your competitors within your industry. No, you are competition. Your competition is the best in class, whoever that might be, whatever region they're in and whatever industry they're in. So these expectations, they transfer across industries, across borders as well, which is why a lot of what I'm going to tell and share today are innovations perhaps out of your usual areas of focus and industry, to bring you in the loop of all of the major trends that are happening in 2021. So how does COVID fit into this model? Because I've just shared that our basic human needs stay the same. And while that is true, nobody can deny that the events of 2020 have had a fundamental impact on consumers' lives. And we pinpointed the 7 basic human needs that have been heightened by the pandemic the most. And as mentioned, basic human needs are one of the core elements of our trends, and therefore are an important starting point when mapping out a new course. So the first one being health and well-being. There's an increased and renewed focus on hygiene, both at home but also outside of home, with people preferring to order online, preferring retail spaces with contactless elements so they don't have to touch anything. There's a renewed focus on health, getting healthy, remaining healthy, home workouts, all act as preventive measures to reduce the chance of being contaminated with the virus. And as well, an increased use of telehealth, because people tend to not want to leave their house. So whatever online services or products they can get to achieve that elevated state of health is welcomed by open arms. So these numbers don't lie. 41% of US adults struggle with mental health issues related to the pandemic, increasing to 75% among those aged 18 to 24. The second one that has been impacted greatly by the pandemic is connection, because one of our basic human needs is connection and hugging our loved ones and relatives, as it is seen as an act of kindness and an act of love. But nowadays, in many regions, it is potentially dangerous, which has led to social interaction shifting towards the digital, as proven by a surge in video chat platforms and 180 million more people using social media between July and September of 2020 compared to the previous 3 months. The third one, convenience, also greatly impacted and has also seen a big shift towards everything digital, as proven by the rise in e-commerce, but also everything local, because it shortens the production and value chain, and therefore eliminating or reducing the chance of contracting the virus. And also it increased its link to food delivery, but also other elements of retail. People opting and looking for that one-stop shop. For instance, also super apps. Peace of mind. This one has been impacted greatly because many people have concerns about the future, whether it is the health of their own, the health of their relatives, but also job opportunities. And of course, the plethora of economic constraints, with 60% of global consumers saying that things in their country are on the wrong track. So a big expectation there to jump into for brands. Entertainment has also been shifted towards the digital, surprise, surprise. So there's an increased shift to digital entertainment, especially gaming has become increasingly popular, and not just among young people, but also among families to connect with one another and kind of relieve stress. So TikTok users reached 100 million users in Europe in September 2020. And one of the virtual concerts hosted by Travis Scott and Fortnite reached over 27 million players worldwide. Then trust. Aside from a pandemic, there has also been an infodemic, with 60% of consumers across 11 countries agreeing that during the crisis, they are turning more to brands that they can trust, meaning that there's a loss in trust for government and government officials. And also fairness. The inequalities in the world have been there, but COVID-19 has heightened these existing inequalities and given them center stage, as proven, for example, by the worldwide Black Lives Matter protests of last year. Also bolstered by the concerns about unemployment. Now, on to the trends. I'm going to share 4 trends with you today, all touching on different elements on society. At the end of every trend, I will ask you a question, which you don't have to answer in chat or to me directly, but you can write them down for yourself, as I want to challenge you to think of ways you could apply the trend I'm presenting on to your own business. So keep that in mind. After each trend, I will give you about 20 to 30 seconds to write it down, and then later on discuss amongst yourselves with your colleagues, with your friends, or whoever you're with currently. So the 4 trends I'm going to share today are brand care, about the rise of a new type of health economy; for and by, which is a play on for and by, regarding cynical consumers demanding authentic social justice initiatives. The 3rd trend is called skills for all, regarding digital upskilling initiatives for employees and those left behind. And the 4th one, metamorphic design, about preparing to deliver relevance as a service. So without further ado, let's dive into the first trend, which is brand care and getting ready for the new health economy. So 74% of US consumers agree that the pandemic has made them more concerned about the health of their family. Because for many in developed countries, this is the first time that they were truly confronted with the fact that good health isn't a given. And meanwhile, the pandemic is reversing decades of progress on healthcare, with the world's poorest and most vulnerable most affected. And studies are even linking COVID deaths to poor air quality. So in 2020, get ready for the rise of a new health economy, in which consumers will expect every brand they interact with to become a healthcare brand and prioritize their and their friends' and families' physical and mental well-being. And we can get real for a second. Let's be real. Consumers are not going to stop eating junk food, and they are not going to stop endlessly scrolling through TikTok, for instance. But the brands that provide those services and products that counteract those bad habits will increasingly be expected and welcomed by open arms. And many are looking to brands to help them become the best version of themselves in terms of health. Many consumers are dissatisfied with with the government's coronavirus responses, and 86% want companies to act as a safety net to fill in those gaps, which is a large amount of people who are then looking to brands to kind of jump into this. And mental health has been disrupted as well. So the demand for mental health services has been rising, but services have been halted or disrupted in 93% of countries. And mental health startups cover a growing range of use cases, but they won't reach everyone. So as the world returns to normal, some causes like isolation may fade, but others like unemployment will be amplified. And then there is the topic of prevention. So the renewed focus on preventive health is rooted in COVID concerns as well, but it's also a reaction to the causes of the pandemic, with 25% of British millennials saying that COVID has made a vegan diet more appealing. And the healthcare business is a big business, especially if these health elements are expanding beyond the healthcare industry themselves. Because currently, it's a $2 trillion business, and big tech companies are taking an ever larger bite as well. For instance, Apple partnered with the Singapore government, while Amazon unveiled their Amazon pharmacy. And even though not all physicians and governments are on board, the direction of travel is clear. So new research suggests that gaming can benefit mental health, and people are already using video games to relieve stress. So some brands are inviting therapists in. So October of last year saw US-based esports production company Skillshot partner with mental health organization Rise Above the Disorder to bring therapy sessions into the video games. And the collaboration invites players to sign up for free sessions during which they're matched up with licensed therapists they can talk to while they're gaming. So it's very easy and very convenient and a very low threshold. So global employees on average have left half of their remaining paid time off days unused in 2020, with increased burnout rates as a result. And Microsoft took notice of this, with their Teams software being widely used for work communications. So they decided to shift their focus from software to people. So the new feature will allow, the new feature within MS Teams will allow users to schedule a virtual commute to create a better workday structure and avoid overworking. So Microsoft also plans to integrate meditation app Headspace and add emotional check-in features to gauge daily well-being. And Headspace is doing a lot of things right. They're setting up a lot of collaborations to kind of bring this mental health awareness into services that you might not expect them in. For instance, this one, it's a collaboration between Hinge, which is a US-based dating platform, and Headspace. And they asked themselves, could focusing on mental well-being help improve the services you offer? And Hinge hopes that this will, this tie-up will allow daters to feel more relaxed, because they found out that 3 in 4 of the people using their services for dates experience dating anxiety. And the travel industry is taking note as well. So in an effort to help visitors recover from pandemic-induced burnouts, Chablé Hotels, which is a Mexico-based chain, curated a line of retreats designed to boost people's physical and mental well-being. They launched in December of last year, I believe, and their well-being programs are designed to improve guests' immunity, relieve stress and anxiety, and even heal heartaches, and are inspired by Mayan rituals and principles. So, how can your advertising campaigns improve consumers' day-to-day lives? One option is to focus on pandemic-related issues or public health matters. So as I shared previously, there have been studies that link poor air quality to the amount of COVID deaths. And the Guggenheim in Bilbao, Spain, took notice of this and wanted to counteract. So they announced that their latest advertising banners would double as air purifiers to improve the city's air quality. And according to the museum, the billboards could have the same effect as 700 trees. So this is an example. They are launching, they are not yet live. I think they're launching in Q2 of 2021. It's called the longevity card, and they're introducing a product for people over 65, with 72% of their older users being more concerned about their health since the pandemic. The neobank aims to combine health concerns with banking by integrating a marketplace for discounted healthcare products and services within the app. So they aim to help simplify the controlling of finances for the targeted age group, as well as providing them with health benefits and making it easier and cheaper to invest in health products. So we have landed at the first light bulb question, as I named them, that I'm going to ask you to take a couple of seconds to answer it. Mental well-being is more important than ever. How will you provide mental health care in 2021 and beyond? So what healthcare elements could you infuse within your brand? I'm also going to take this moment to have a sip of water. on to the second trend. So a long brewing dissatisfaction with capitalism has collided with inequalities amplified by the pandemic. And combine that with 2020's global Black Lives Matter protests and the rise of performative allyship. And consumers are increasingly skeptical and willing to challenge brands' claims of authenticity. So cynical consumers demand authentic social justice initiatives. So in 2021 and moving forward, consumers will look for brands to go beyond virtue signaling and focus on authentic social justice initiatives that were started by or prioritize the needs of sidelined groups, to amplify long overlooked voices and work as equal collaborators and partners to drive real social progress. And this is also a chance for companies and corporates to launch a purpose audit for brands to re-evaluate their why and ensure that those principles guide every action, from social justice to sustainability. Because in a post-pandemic world, consumers will demand nothing less. Because if there's one thing that's been proven worldwide, is that the pandemic has had uneven impact, I should say. In the US, Black people have the highest COVID mortality rates, with 2 or more times higher than the rates of white people and Asian Americans. And it also rings true on a global perspective, with, I believe, 39% of the unemployment pool comprising of women, even though they account for 54%. Sorry, I get my numbers switched up. So they comprise 39% of the global workforce, while 54% of the overall job losses, which is imbalanced. And therefore, economists are concerned about a K-shaped recovery, with some segments of society recovering sharply, while others decline, which further widens the inequality gap. And one of the most obvious statistics to support that claim is that billionaires' fortunes climbed by 27.5% to $10.2 trillion, with Bezos and Musk winning big. So 56% of global respondents believe that capitalism in its current form is doing more harm than good. And these are numbers before the pandemic hit us. So just to illustrate that COVID didn't create these disparities, it just highlighted and heightened pre-existing issues. And 71% of US consumers believe companies have more responsibility to address social justice issues. And another study that spanned 18 markets found 4 in 5 people agreeing brands should take action to support Black Lives Matter. And for value-led consumers, counting on brands to balance doing good and making profits is just a start. They'll also expect them to actively uplift marginalized communities and promote diversity from within, and be truly authentic change makers. And this was also shown by the Blackout Tuesday initiative, because many consumers saw right through the virtue signaling, with brands just posting their black square but not acting anymore, which won't be accepted moving forward. This financial service provider is aiming to keep funds within the community it's supporting and it's founded upon. So Greenwood is a digital bank designed to empower Black and Latinx consumers, which opened registration in October of 2020. So Greenwood aims to ensure that communities of color can accrue wealth and combat systemic oppression. And on top of that, the bank will provide a $10K grant to a Black or Latinx small business owner that is a Greenwood client. So as of last month, all 164 giant supermarkets in the Washington, D.C. area will feature shelf labels to help consumers identify products owned by minority-based businesses. So over 3,100 products by 218 businesses will be tagged, and the product labels will also be added to Giant's website and mobile app later this year. And it's not just the Black-owned tag that will be attached to the regular tags, but also the ones of Asian, Indian Americans, Hispanic Americans, and also members of the LGBT community. So how can you credit, reward, and champion the cultures and creators your brand takes inspiration from? This is an example that takes us all across the world to Australia. So last year, a group of Aboriginal business owners partnered to create Trading Black. It's a collective that promotes transparency and ethical practices among businesses trading in Aboriginal culture. So the collective hopes to educate Australian consumers and non-Aboriginal business owners about cultural appropriation and the need to give back to the community when selling Aboriginal products. And this is another favorite example of mine. So music producer and entrepreneur Pharrell Williams announced the launch of Black Ambition, which is an incubator platform for Black and Latinx entrepreneurs, which he launched in December of 2020. So the initiative awards prizes, which range from $250,000 to $1 million. And Black Ambition therefore offers startups with funding for ideas that span from tech to design to healthcare and also consumer products. So We Solar is a community, is a solar community, and they provide affordable energy to low and moderate income families. They were launched in Maryland in June of last year, and the company allows customers to purchase or lease panels located in local solar farms. And the energy powers consumers' homes, and they receive credits on their energy bills as a result. And We Solar aims to remove the barriers that many residents are facing to accessing renewable energy. And another additional bonus is that the company is the first Black-owned, female Black-owned, I should say, energy company in the United States. Moving to the second question, which is, the creation of more diverse businesses can have a domino effect. What will you do to pay it forward in 2021? I'm going to give you another 30 seconds or so to answer this for yourself. Moving on to our third trend. So one theme that's threaded throughout this presentation is the accelerated digital transformation as a result of COVID, as I'm sure you've noticed, also when touching on the basic human needs. So 74% of surveyed executives believe that they have been helping their employees learn the skills needed to work in new ways, and 38% of employees agreed. Which was all empowered by everything digital. And in the wake of the pandemic, which has upended live and accelerated digital transformation, consumers will look to brands to teach them useful life skills, outsource daily tasks, or help them realize personal life goals. And 8 in 10 organizations have fast-tracked digital transformation programs this year, which is a staggering amount. So this is an example by Instacart, who have helped 60,000 seniors across the United States to buy groceries online via the brand Senior Support Service. And the phone service was developed for Instacart customers over the age of 60 and is staffed by specialists who can assist with setting up the accounts and filling up virtual cards and placing orders, among a few other services. So this is an example by Google. They announced that 3 new certificates, one in data analytics, one in project management, and a third one in user experience, would be made available on online learning platform Coursera. And the certificates take between 3 and 6 months to complete. They do not require any college degree, and they're taught by Google employees. And all certificates will be considered as equivalent to a 4-year college degree for related roles at the company. This is an example from Singapore. By Foodpanda, they have partnered up with Gnobe and Temasek Polytechnic to offer delivery people in Singapore access to free and discounted courses. So Gnobe is a mobile-first education platform targeted towards employers and offers programs in bite-sized learning units. So micro-learning is a natural fit for writers, as it allows them to squeeze in some education while waiting for orders to come through. And currently on offer are free courses in customer service and discounts on other courses as well. And participants will also receive certificates on completion. This is an example of ING from just last month, when they announced plans to sponsor various community projects across Europe as part of its wider pandemic relief efforts. So the projects fall across 3 categories: financial health, digital skills, and social entrepreneurship. And they are designed to support those across the society spectrum, from displaced workers at risk of poverty to budding entrepreneurs looking to scale their businesses. And each project is assigned by a local third party and then sponsored by ING. And at the end of last year, Verizon announced a new partnership with Generation to invest $44 million in an online upskilling program for unemployed Americans. So the partnership will offer a free tech-focused career reskilling program to Americans with limited opportunities, with Black and Latinx applicants, women, and people without a 4-year degree being prioritized. And each program, spanning 10 to 12 weeks, will provide free resources and access to multiple career pathways and full-time employment in jobs in multiple tech industries. Flying across the world again to New Zealand. So New Zealand is providing small businesses, especially those in tourism and hospitality, with a digital boost to help them adapt to the post-pandemic landscape. The program, which launched last month, has been devised with tech educator The Mind Lab, and it lasts 6 months and comprises of 1 hour of training per day, plus one-on-one support via telephone or Zoom as well. And what I should also mention is that this initiative is part of a wider plan by the New Zealand government to improve the digital capabilities of small and micro businesses in the country. So this campaign tackles diversity through empowerment by giving women who might fall outside the expected influencer bracket new skills. It's an example by a boutique, and they launched a training program to train women aged 40 and older to become digital influencers. And candidates could apply through the cosmetics brand's website by sending in a mini biography relating to self-esteem and self-care. And they selected, I believe, the 200 best ones to enter an online influencer course. Leading to our third light bulb question. How have your consumers been impacted by the pandemic? And how are you placed to help and support them as they navigate the next normal? I'm going to give you another 30 seconds to answer before moving on to our fourth trend. Moving on to metamorphic design. So products and services that evolve and adapt to maximize value for the user, prepared to deliver relevance as a service. So, because across the last 2 decades, the big story of relevance has been mostly online, data-fueled personalization for billions of users. But the need for relevance is also subject to constant change. And currently it is breaking free from the digital realm and into the physical one. Just taking this one, for example. So consider the process of choosing a multivitamin. It can be pretty overwhelming. And say you find a brand that you like, you're also going to be stuck with them for a long time. But just like many elements of the human, of us humans, our expectations change, and our nutritional needs aren't fixed either and are subject to change as well. So what do you do when you're stuck on a set of vitamins for the year forward, but your nutritional needs change? Well, Base jumped into this gap, as they offer a selection of daily vitamins that are chosen based on the nutritional needs of any given individual. The company analyzes a self-sampled blood test from each customer and tailors each kit accordingly, and providing a subscription service if they opt in. Each starter kit starts at $199 US, and they've recently been approved by the FDA. And the blood testing is completely painless and is developed by MIT. And Metamorphic Design also supports new lifestyle. So just last month, Nissan released a new concept vehicle designed to allow owners to take their workspace anywhere with them. So the NV350 Caravan office includes a built-in desk space, a coffee station, and a rooftop balcony. And the office slides out of the back of the caravan, where electric shades and umbrellas can protect users from unexpected weather. And it's also been impacting the way we live our lives. So this is an example by US-based construction company Module, who are specialized in prefabricated houses, which can then be delivered and built on site. So this modular design allows homeowners to remove their roof and add extra floors when additional space is required. And this allows prospective homeowners on a budget to buy a more affordable home and upgrade when it is financially feasible and socially relevant. So Module's designs meet the Department of Energy Zero Energy Ready Home standard and can be powered by renewable energy as well. So at the end of last year, Here was launched, which is an audio entertainment app for road trips connecting travelers to the people, places, and history of the land they are traveling in. So the app is currently only available for iPhone users in the US and uses GPS location to offer road trippers stories that change based on where they are. And Here aims to enrich road traveling by playing listeners short 2 to 3 minute audio snippets about the places they are encountering. So it's perfectly curated to the user's interests and also location. Again, tapping into that need for metamorphic design. And metamorphic design also requires empathy. To share one last example with you. So how can you show more empathy to changing circumstances? This is an example by India-based Edelweiss, which is a new type of insurance model, which is a pay-as-you-use one, and can be switched on and off, sorry, according to drivers' needs. So the app-based policy allows drivers to pay for the times they need cover and can be set automatically activate on certain days of the week. So whenever you're not driving, you can just switch it off and you don't have to pay for the days that you're not using it. And according to Edelweiss, it will mean lower premiums for policyholders as they will only pay as per usage. So one final question I would like to ask you is, how will you set your offering up to react and evolve to better serve customers as their needs change in a post-pandemic world? Because if you really want to deliver in terms of relevance, you need to continuously adapt your offering. Because as mentioned, consumers' needs are not fixed, they're constantly changing. So products and services should reflect that. I'm going to give you another 30 seconds to answer this question. And I know it's, you cannot come up with the perfect answer in just 30 seconds. And I don't think anybody expects you to, but it's a nice conversation starter, at least. So in retrospect, we touched on these 4 trends. The first one being brand care and the rise of a new global health economy across industries, across regions. For and by, about consumers demanding more in terms of authentic social justice initiatives and demanding social impact from brands. Skills for all, about digital upskilling initiatives for employees and those left behind. And last but not least, metamorphic design, about preparing to deliver relevance as a service, because the need for relevance changes as often as the weather, basically, and products and services should reflect that. So when you take these basic needs and drivers of change, and now you're also armed with a bunch of relevant innovations, you can start delivering on that sweet spot, finding where there is room for your company or your brand to jump into the expectation gaps that have arisen as a result of the pandemic. Because I truly believe that trends are nothing unless you apply them. Otherwise, it just stays, yeah, if you don't apply them, they remain untapped business opportunities. So that's also what I want to leave my presentation part for today. I'm very curious to hear what opportunities you will find, and you don't have to answer me directly, but write them down for yourself. And I think that it's now time to head over to our Q&A session. I see I'm a little bit over time, a couple of minutes, sorry for that, but I think we still have some time for questions.
Me too. We've got about 10 minutes left, and I know that a couple of questions had come in. Eric, thank you so much, first off, for joining us today and for taking us through this presentation. Eric and I were chatting a little bit before we started that we had actually partnered with Trendwatching back in 2019 to kick off our very first Tower Talk series. And we acknowledged that so much has changed in our world. Of course, year to year, things naturally change, but even more so as we head into 2021. So I want to ask Eric, can you talk to us a little bit about what's new in consumer trends, and also how companies are kind of maintaining culture while so many people are working away from the office space?
Right. Those are 2 great questions, because when so much change is happening, then of course the trend business has to adapt as well. And what we've been seeing is that this demand for social impact, for sustainable impact, is increasing and is kind of intertwined with all of our trends. And it is also what we want to keep promoting to our clients as well. So over the past year, we've been working on a new innovation method. Our method used to be called trend-driven innovation. And our new method, which is to be launched, I think, at the end of next week, actually. So you have the first insider scoop. It's called purpose-driven innovation. And it takes purpose as an essence for all innovation purposes. So what we mean by that is usually when we assess innovations to see if they have future growth potential, we basically challenge them towards the drivers of change and also basic human needs. But now with this new method, we also take into consideration the 8 sustainability principles to make sure that every innovation that we write about, that we talk about, that we promote to our clients is grounded in doing good and creating positive impact. So I think that is one of the biggest changes for us, for trend watching and for consumer trends in general. And also, sorry, tell me if I'm rambling, but another aspect is the anatomy of our trends. So they're based on basic human needs and drivers of change. And when those two bump into each other, they create tension, as I shared previously. And the basic human needs remain the same, but the drivers of change do not, as they are long global societal shifts which last about 10 years. And we are currently in the process, as a result of the pandemic as well, to kind of pinpoint what drivers of change, which new ones are now rising into prominence to further enhance our trend framework and trend intelligence, basically. So
that's great.
So that was it in terms of, I think, the future of consumer trends. And your second question was about how to retain, help me out.
Maintaining culture with so many employees working remotely.
Right. So one trend that I really love is called virtual concierges. And it basically shares about how you can adapt offline elements into the online spaces. So, for instance, in retail, many brands are looking for ways they can bring that in-store experience to consumers' homes. And I think the same can be done for workplaces. So it's important to look at why employers or employees love to work at the office, like what are the core elements of company culture, and how can you emulate that into the online spaces? And there are plenty of online services that provide help in this regard. Looking back at the new service from Microsoft Teams, for instance, who are offering now more options to kind of bolster this company culture. Does that answer the question?
I think that's great. I know that EQ Office thinks about that all the time, right? About kind of the evolution of office space, and so I think that really kind of hits the nail on the head there. Another question came through about retail changes anticipated in the U.S. With not just return to offices, but also venues in tourism. Any trends that kind of resonate with those anticipated returns?
Yeah, definitely. So for many consumers, the pandemic was the first time that they were confronted with serious crisis, as mentioned. And as a result, many came to the realization that good health isn't a given. So in the pursuit of that health, of minimizing risk of contamination, consumers are now upping their personal hygiene, going for virtual hugs, and also contactless payments, and touching as little as possible. Because even though most pandemic-related restrictions will eventually be lifted, I think, the global effects on retail will remain. Because as physical stores start reopening again, more people will be drawn to visit, but this increased need for hygiene and contactless service will remain relevant. So I think adapting situations where low touch is the center of the delivery of the retail experience is gonna remain, and it's not going to change even after the restrictions have been lifted.
I hear what you're saying. I often think about like the experience of going to like a Sam's Club or a Costco. Back in the day, we can say now there were samples and a different experiential view to shopping. Right. But I can definitely see what you're saying about that changing. and low touch kind of sticking around even as health officials tell us and progress is made on kind of health and safety. It's safe for us to be back in the space, but there might be some resistance to that level of experiential shopping that we were once used to. Right. So I definitely see that as well. Well, I am not seeing any other questions come into the chat. If anybody has anything last minute, please feel free. Oh, I am seeing one here. Low touch physically or as transactional. So pandemic shopping is so different from personalized, tailored experience with which was the trend before. So I kind of hear it's a combination of both, correct? That people might be low touch transactionally and low touch physically.
Yeah, I think this low touch context can be applied throughout every step of the customer journey. So both in terms of discovery, like people wanting to check out a car, for instance, virtually or digitally, not wanting to go to the physical stop for starters, but also demonstration and trials being done digitally and contactless, as well as ordering and purchasing both online and physically in store, and of course contactless payments, because cash used to be king, but not anymore, and I don't think that will ring true again later on. So it's really both online and offline,
right?
Every single step, yeah.
And I imagine that virtual concierge trend might have some implications too. That though that personalized experience is changing to low touch, there's still an element of personalization there, which is super interesting to hear.
Yeah, and it's also for every trend there's always a counter trend, because the opposite of the contactless economy is what I like to call sensory fetishism. So even though, or because we are stuck behind a screen, there's a lack of sensory stimulation. So on one hand, people don't want to touch anything at all, but we still remain the same humans with the same basic human needs. And sensory stimulation is what calms our nerves and creates memorable touch points also with brands. So it's a fine line and a fine balancing act of how to bring that tactile experience into a contactless context, basically. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's time, and I want to thank everybody and Eric again for joining us today. Keep an eye out for our post-event communication and details on our next Tower Talk, which is scheduled for Tuesday, March 9th. It's a Women of Willis collaborative event where we'll be hearing from some of the women who have helped lead the redevelopment at Willis Tower. Thank you all again. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you.